Hello and welcome to the video. This video is to interview this chap here. I'm in the top right hand corner for those of you that can't see me. This gentleman, for those of you that don't know, is Dominic Clifton. Now Dominic is pretty much a paragon in the hobby. He's the guy that was behind Cleanflight. That means pretty much why we have Betaflight and why we have things like Inav now. So he has been one of the big pillars in the hobby for a very long time, but kind of disappeared off the radar a couple of years ago. Now, I've known Dominic for a very long time, and Dominic and I kind of keep talking, and he mentioned that he was creating a new flight controller. And for those of you that haven't seen the video, I'll put a link here in the video so you can go and have a look at that. And this is called the H7 Extreme. This is a very, very powerful flight controller that's doing some pretty unique stuff that we haven't seen yet in the hobby. And as part of that video, I asked you, could you leave your questions under there, as I'd get an opportunity, which is this video, to put them to Dominic. So first of all, Dominic, thank you very much for the time today. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. Your lab is very impressive. I'm gonna have to have a lab behind me. I feel like you've kind of beat me there. We need to do the mug hello. So there's my Painless 360 mug.
Let's do it. Yeah. Cheers.
Hey, there's it. Yeah, chink. So what we'll do is we'll kind of go through the questions, but first of all, before I do that with you, buddy, what I'd like to do is can you just explain where you've been for the past 2 years? Because Cleanflight was kind of, you know, the mothership, and all these other projects ran on were forked off it. And for those of you that don't understand how open source software works, I'll put a link in the description that explains how it works. But Betaflight and Inav and all that stuff kind of went away, and then kind of Cleanflight kind of, it felt like shut up its, you know, kind of pulled the rollers down and locked the door and, you know, threw the key over its shoulder and disappeared forever. What have you been doing for the past 2 years?
Well, working hard back in London to earn enough money to put a mortgage down on a house was the main thing.
Right.
Then relocating to another country, buying a house and finding a house and buying a house, which took quite a while. The third one was the one that I ended up buying, but there was offers put on 2 of them, so that takes quite a while. And then after that, it's basically getting settled in a new country and working out what to do. And then I had to build a kitchen. That was fun. That took about 3 months or so, and fix up the house basically that I bought. So that took quite a considerable amount of time. So during that period of time, I didn't even have any internet access for like about, I don't know, 4 months or so once I left London to the new house. So yeah, so there was a big 4-month gap of me not doing pretty much anything at all Cleanflight related, which was a nice refreshing break actually. It was good, because sometimes all the drama and everything like this can get to you. So having a break away from it all makes you sort of take stock of things, and then you get a different perspective of it.
It does, you know. I kind of sometimes feel like that once I've got, like, you know, the 11th or 12th tiny whoop style quadcopter, you start to lose the will to live a little bit and you need a break. So I kind of understand that. So you haven't left the hobby, you haven't you've just been doing grown up stuff.
Yeah. Right. No, I love tinkering. I think even if I wanted to leave the hobby, I probably couldn't anyway, because it's just too much fun.
Right.
This is the one thing that I like about this particular hobby. You get to fly with crazy, stupid things. You get out of the house and go flying in really amazing locations. Plus, there's some really, really interesting technical challenges to solve as well. So, in both hardware and software, and now, you know, with things like this thing behind me, engineering challenges as well. So yeah. So it's all very exciting.
Well, that leads me beautifully onto my next question, because you are a little bit unusual in the hobby, in that not only were you kind of the guiding hand behind Cleanflight, but you were also very heavily involved in the creation of the first F3 based flight controllers, the SeriouslyPro back in the day. Probably one of the most cloned flight controllers in history. So you know, you were there at the very early days, kind of propelling us out of the Nazi 32 CC3D era of flight controllers. And for those of you who've been with the hobby long enough, you'll remember that. So you've always had this kind of foot in both camps methodology. So what's brought about this move to H7 then? Because that's a bit different, isn't it?
It certainly is. Yeah, it's a crazy fast processor. And if you get the right one, they are cheap enough to do, basically. that makes sense. The main issue with them is that they're really giant. So if you get like a flight controller, here's a 2020 H7, and basically it's I don't know whether you can see that on there. Maybe I'll put pictures in the comments or something. But basically, a 2020 flight controller is like an H7 with like just a few bits on the side of it. So they're really big, but they're super powerful, which is one of the other reasons for doing it. Basically, with that, the clock speed, it basically helps you basically get all the flight controller stuff done very quickly, which on a dual gyro board like the H7 Extreme is also very good. Go on, you were about to say something.
No, I was just going to say, 400 megahertz or something's ridiculous.
It is
like that,
400 megahertz, yes. It is 400 megahertz, and there's some other interesting news regarding the speed as well, which you'll find out at some point in the future.
Right.
But yeah, 400 megahertz, which is twice as fast as all the F7 boards that are out there. One of the things with the F7 versus the F4 is that the F7 initially, when it was released, it was slower than the F4 because of various technical issues, mainly to do with how data is moved around inside the processor. And there was a lot of work that had to be done to basically make it faster than an F4. But the H7 basically has all that work already done for it from the F7, plus it's twice as fast as the F7 already, so it gets stuff done really, really quickly.
Right, so you get a cumulative effect, essentially.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So there was a number of questions about your new flight controller on that original video. So what I'd like to do, Dominic, if that's okay, and for those of you that left a question, I'll put a time index in the description below this video. So if you want to find your own question, you can just jump to it. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through this. And again, apologies. This is kind of everybody's first view of your board in that video that I did a while ago. So some of this is probably going to seem like really obvious to you. But to be honest, I don't know the answers to this stuff anyway. So if we start at the very top, they're in no particular order. First one, Neuroflight. Will there be a Neuroflight target? There's lots of commentary about Neuroflight at the moment. Has there been any conversations around that for the new H7 Extreme?
Certainly processor speed wise, it makes a lot of sense. So one of the things you'll be limited with on the F4 is being able to get all the AI stuff done in a short space of time, so that the H7 releases that burden. In terms of whether it's me doing it or the other developer doing it, I think the project was done as like some PhD kind of study thing, if I'm correct. I did watch a few videos on it a while back ago. But if they wanted to get Betaflight 4 and H7 support working, first the H7 code needs to be merged into Betaflight. That's not happened yet, but it's in progress. I think just last week some of the libraries and so on were moved. It takes a bit of time to do this, as all the developers have to agree. So I can go and create loads of cool stuff, but not everyone else will agree with the way that I've done it. So I have to change things around and get it fit. So the first thing that the Neuroflight guys will need is basically the Betaflight 4 code, because they're currently using Betaflight 3.3 or 3.5, I think it was, for the base of Neuroflight. So they would need to upgrade that. Then once they've done that, then they could take the H7 stuff and then create a target for it then. Wow. So yeah, it's totally possible to do it.
So, because at the moment, the software to run on the H7 Extreme is available from your website, isn't it? So,
that's right, yeah.
So you've used your software know-how to actually put those extra bits in there. And so if I understand it right, that has to just ripple through the rest of the developer community and things like Betaflight and other places, and it'll pop out the other end, and then everything else that kind of lives off that will get that support too. Just happens that you're breaking new ground again.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Next one then. While we're on the subject of code, I've just been doing an Ardupilot build on a F4 Omnibus, good old Omnibus, and it's worked spectacularly well. We get all of the Ardupilot goodness on a £20 flight controller, but it would be amazing if we could have it on something like a H7 Extreme. Any thoughts on that? Because that was the second question.
Yeah, again, I'm breaking new ground. So the H7 isn't the standard. The H7 that I use on the Extreme to keep the price down is not one with loads of flash memory. It uses external flash memory. So Ardupilot is a larger piece of software, So one of the technical issues is basically getting that large piece of software to run on it from the external flash. I had a quick chat to some of the Ardupilot devs in the Gitter channel, I think it was, maybe a few weeks ago now. And there's certainly some interest in it. And I think Ardupilot already has H7 support in their code base. So the main technical issues that they would have to sort out is basically allowing the code to run from external flash as opposed to copied to main memory and run from there, which is how we do it for the Betaflight code. So once they work that out, which shouldn't actually be that bad, because there's a way of doing it memory mapped, but it's a technical thing. They should be able to do that and then basically get the code up and running on it. And they'll be able to do that a bit easier once all the details for the Betaflight code is released, with things like that, or which pin is connected to what and so on, which they haven't got at the moment.
Fab. That's exciting. Oh, I'll look forward to that, because I've got obviously one of the H7 Extremes here, and I would love to put something like that on it.
Yeah, if anyone's watching this and is a developer from the Ardupilot side of things, then please do get in contact with me, and I can do what I can to assist in the in the progress of that.
Fab. Okay, so we've got an awful lot more processing power in the H7. I'll come on some more questions, because people are kind of asking, why do you need that extra horsepower? But in fact, let's do that now. So it is. So lots of people are saying, well, hang on a minute, we don't really need F7. We don't really need H7 then, surely. And I remember having this exact same conversation when the F3 came out.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone went,
you don't need an F3.
Oh, why will we
you don't need an
F3?
F1, just let's all run it on AVRs, it'd be great forever, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No.
8-bit APM can hack it. So
no.
And I know this is kind of the way it works, but
yeah.
You when we've spoken before, you mentioned a couple of things that could potentially be unlocked by having the extra horsepower in something like Betaflight. Could you give a couple of examples just to kind of illustrate the kind of things that could be done with a faster processor?
Yeah, just touching on the point that you made there about the history of things. So, the original CleanFlight Betaflight code has origins from MultiWii, which ran on an 8-bit processor.
Them were the days.
with like no memory and no flash space, and you had to compile everything yourself, make settings in config files and everything like that. And then that was eventually ported to an F1, and it was largely the same. It flew like the same. But then after a while, things start getting improved on it, as in you can make changes to the configuration without having to recompile the code yourself. Yeah, fantastic, stuff like that. So, but only that kind of stuff comes along when someone puts it on a different processor and basically sets the bench line of, what you can do with this higher, because you couldn't do all these things on the previous processor. So with the H7 versus like the F7 and the F4, you've got this evolution of the flight controllers there. So with any new processor, yeah, sure, a lot of it might sit around unused for a little while until developers catch up and go, oh yeah, man, we could do this with it. Oh yeah, brilliant. And then they get some really good ideas, and then lo and behold, it's the de facto standard in like a couple of years' time, and you'll be all wondering like, well, why did we ever run on F3s and F1s? Oh, it was terrible. So there's that side to it. But right here and right now, basically the H7 and its clock speed gets, as I said a bit ago, it just gets more stuff done in a shorter amount of time. And stable timing of the control loop is critical to having a well-flying, fast-reacting quad. So the more processing power you've got there to do that, the quicker you can keep your loop times, as they used to be called. The quicker you can keep those, and the more time you have to run all the other ancillary tasks like getting your receiver data and all this kind of stuff, and working with gyros, doing all logging and things like that. So with like an H7, you can log data at a much faster rate. It uses I/O interfaces to the memory chips and the SD card, which are 4 times as wide as the previous one, so it can get 4 times as much data through. So it can get basically all its work done a lot quicker. So it's not just in the performance of the H7 processor, it's also in the interfaces that can be used on it as well, which is easier on a larger chip because you've got more pins that you can wire up to things. Okay. So
that makes a lot of sense, because you were talking about at the moment, having some of the sensing done on each axis, but you could actually do the sensing on each axis for each motor and have a much more accurate, there were those kind of things you were talking about, which I thought were exciting. But I guess we've got to wait for the devs to unlock the power that's available in the new hardware.
I mean, everyone that's tried it at the moment just says it flies absolutely amazingly. So, I mean, I'm not the best pilot in the world. If I was to go racing, I'd be last these days. Oh my God, I remember winning races back, I don't know, it was like 2015 or something like that. I actually won a race. I'm like, I wouldn't win a race now. No. So I have to rely on what the other people say, and how they fly it from experienced pilots, and all the experienced pilots that have got one just say, it's absolutely fantastic. So
it has evolved a lot. I think quads that are reviewed these days that we go, tune's a bit crap. We would have been over the moon 3-4 years ago.
That's right.
How locked in it felt. So everybody's getting spoilt a bit. Okay, so the next one then, we got a couple of quick questions. Thank you for that. So the how do the audio for the PIDs work? There was some interest in that because one of the things you've done is there's an audio output on the flight controller with a mic, and it actually feeds back via an audio signal about how hard the PIDs are working, and lots of people were really interested. Can you talk a little bit more about that for me?
Yep. So the F7 Dual and the H7 Extreme both have the same PID audio system on them. So they have a microphone which basically just goes straight to the video transmitter's audio input, and on its way it gets mixed in with a signal coming from the processor, which is the PID audio signal. And on my transmitter, I have one like a Tyrannus one. I basically have a switch that I set up which enables like the PID audio, and then I have a rotary dial which basically has the 6 positions, and I have that configured so that I can listen to 6 different PID audio output modes. Well, potentially 6. Currently there's 3. There's room for improvement and monitoring other things via audio channels. If anyone's interested, let me know in the comments. But the 3 things that you can listen to are the PID sum of all the axes. I think, or is it pitch and roll? I think it's pitch and roll only. Yeah, pitch and roll merged, and another one was the pitch, and another one was the roll. I don't think there's one for yaw yet, but it's trivial to add. So the idea is that if your flight controller is stable, you basically get a constant tone, and then if there's an error, the tone will change. So the quad's got to move quite a lot, so therefore the tone increases in pitch a lot. So basically you can get a feel for how well it's flying, because the flight controller has to do more work, and when it has to do more work you can hear a varying tone. So the more varied the tone is, the more work the flight controller is doing. The purer the tone is, the more optimized the tune is. So with the little rotary dial, as you're flying around, you can switch it over to the other channels and then listen to which axis might be giving you troubles.
Right, so if there's lots of oscillations in the audio, that means that the tune isn't there. If it's relatively small oscillations, then you're pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making a big stick input, then you're going to get a varying tone from it, and you can actually waggle the sticks around and listen to the tone before you take off, which is kind of fun. So it's like a with the thumb. It's great.
Someone's going to make music with that, aren't they?
Because the way it works, if you've got you've got your stick input, you're saying I want to be here, but the quad's not taken off yet. So it's obviously there's an error. There's a lot of error in the angle that it wants to be set at. So that gets translated to a tone. So you can move your sticks and it changes the PID audio tone. It's kind of quite fun to listen to. A couple of people have been a bit confused as to where you do the configuration with this, because there isn't much in the way of documentation on it. But if you go into the configurator and you've got the modes and you've got the adjustments, you need to set one mode on a switch so it activates PID audio. And then on the adjustments, you define one of the slots that you've got. So you say on channel, whichever is your pot channel or a 3-position switch or whatever, you set up the range on that. You say whatever is on this, set the range to the full range of it, and then using PID audio adjustment, PID audio selection, I think the name is in it, and you basically do one in the modes and one in the adjustments, and that's how you enable it.
Fantastic. And if there's any confusion and you'd like us to do a video
screenshots
and screen that kind of stuff, then let us know. Right, okay, next one then. What software uses the dual gyro feature? Because just to set the scene, that again, there are 2 gyros on the bottom of the flight controller, one at 45 degrees, just gives a far better accurate reading of the position of the model. But both of those are on a separate SPI bus, and all that really means is that they can be read at the same time. But the question is what software actually uses them to their full extent at the moment?
I think only Betaflight is the only software with support for dual gyros that I'm aware of. If anyone else knows of anything else, let us know in the comments.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, so I think it's only that. But yeah, touching on your point, so on the H7 Extreme, each gyro is connected to a separate SPI bus, which means the processor can potentially send out 2 requests to have them read and then have the data sent back automatically via DMA without any CPU intervention, which further gives developers room for improvement. I don't know of any other flight controller that has 2 gyros that use dual gyros that also have 2 SPI buses. So again, this is another first that's there. So not only have you got the stupidly fast processor time, you can actually do more work in parallel to basically get your control loop down even smaller. Because before you would have to wait to read a gyro, wait to read another gyro, which currently that's the way it still works. But now the door is open to read this gyro at the same time as the other one in this amount of time, as opposed to this amount of time. If that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And actually, it sounds like it would be a much better way to do it, because surely in the interval between reading one gyro and the other, the readings could have changed because of the attitude of the craft could have changed. And you're actually then comparing those 2 and getting an offset, which actually isn't a real offset.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, it's so small, the point in time. I don't think it makes that much difference in terms of it, because when you start the gyros, they will be ready at different times anyway. So there's always going to be some slight variance between the 2 gyros. Yeah.
Okay, the next question then is around supporting more advanced on-screen display features. So this is one that I'm currently interested in. Everyone knows at the moment that I am so over the Max chip based crap that we have. Now at the moment it looks like the H7 Extreme has the Max chip, or well, the successor to the Max chip on the back, so it supports the Betaflight stuff. But I know for me personally, one of the things I'm excited about is surely if there's that much more horsepower on there, it could almost run several things in parallel. Couldn't and proper on-screen display be one of them, with contextual information and pop-ups and things like that, rather than the horrid thing that we have now?
It could, but there's a problem. Cloners. So yeah, I could spend 6 months of my life developing an OSD system and make it all open source, stick it on the H7, and away you go. Bob's your uncle. And then what's going to happen the next day is that everyone else just goes, oh yeah, that's good, let's just copy all that and ship it. So not anytime soon will there be an open source fanciful graphic OSD running on an H7 with no other chips supporting it, is the short answer. And you can thank the cloners for that. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. So if there was a way to somehow have the H7 have some private code on it, which then could not be accessed by anyone trying to clone the system, and they would have to write the OSD module themselves, then yeah, the H7 is probably more than capable of doing that. But there's other OSD systems coming out as well. There's been various Max 7456 replacements these days. I think the last one I saw, I'll give a shout out to them actually, was the newbie drone people. They've got something going on their little all-in-one board. It works exactly the same way. It's actually a replacement for the Max 7456, but it's in a different form factor, and I'm not sure about much of the technical details, but it's certainly not a Max 7456 chip. But it behaves the same way.
Hallelujah. Okay, so the moment it's watch this space. It may come in a future version of Betaflight. I mean, there are other hardware manufacturers who are developing boards and code. If you don't mind me mentioning people like Brain FPV, for example, who have done something a little bit proprietary around on-screen display. So
there's a couple of things about the OSD as well, which is probably worth touching on a little bit. So you go, I've got a chip. I can draw dots on the screen. Great. That's actually the easy bit. The hard bit is working with the Betaflight developers and integrating what it is you want to draw, how you're going to draw it, how it doesn't affect all the rest of the code base, how it doesn't interfere with the flight performance, and having some kind of interface on it that everyone else can kind of agree with. That's actually the tricky bit. That's actually much more time consuming than getting some dots to draw on a screen with a chip. I mean, people have been doing this since the 1980s with the CGA and all this kind of stuff. Having a tiny little processor doing that, generating video signals. So, yeah.
Okay, good point. Thank you. So the question of can they be supplied with the pins soldered on? At the moment, they come in the little box with the pins separately.
That's right.
And lots of people are nervous about that the relatively fine soldering to put the pins on. Is that something that you're going to offer, or at the moment is that something that maybe a reseller could do?
Yeah, well, the resellers certainly can do that. Yes, if you ask them nicely. I think it's basically just a question in the industry of if you ask nicely, I'm sure we could do it. Certainly I'm of that approach as well. So if when you place your order with me directly and you say in your comments, please solder on the connectors, or fire an email separately after you've placed your order, and if you want them connected on, then that can be done.
Fab. Okay, that's great. Any plans? This was a great question. Any plans for a 20 by 20 millimeter version? Bearing in mind you've just shown me a board that pretty much was all CPU. Right? Is that it?
Wait. Can you see it? I don't know whether the camera's going to focus on it, but yeah, that is it.
I think you've set your camera up to intentionally fuzz it out because it's an unreleased product. Okay, so the answer is yes, but watch this space.
Here it is versus the standard H7 board. So,
right,
yeah,
fab. Okay, good news. Good news.
That's coming out soon. I basically need to build a few and. And then let's ship it. Really, awesome. It's ready. I mean, I've got all the PCBs and everything here to sort it all out. So, imminently,
you heard it first here.
Imminently.
Okay, so the last couple of questions. Then I'm conscious we've been going for a while now. Plug and play options for a 4-in-1 ESC. That was one of the questions. Some of the flight controllers these days have the little header at the side that will plug into a 4-in-1.
So the H7 Extreme is a sort of revision of the F7 Dual, which is a PDB. So it doesn't make any sense having a PDB and having like a 6-layer board that can conduct loads of current through it for a 4-in-1 ESC. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you buy that? You want a different flight controller. So the H7 Extreme has solder pads which you can connect a 4-in-1 ESC to it, and also on the bottom of the board, we just bring one up really quick and fun. I just put it back in the little test rig. On the bottom of the board, you can see I've actually got it connected on here. So there's cutouts for the battery inputs. That's where you solder the battery wires. And then you've also got 2 large solder pads on the back of it to go to a 4-in-1 ESC. So the idea is that you have the battery wires going into the battery pads, take 2 small wires, and that goes to the power in for the 4-in-1 ESC. And then you take the wire that comes with your 4-in-1 ESC, and then solder one wire to the signals and a connector ground to it. And then that's how you get the flight controller to measure the current and supply the 4-in-1 ESC with its power. So you can use a 4-in-1 ESC that doesn't have current sensing with the H7 Extreme.
Fab.
But it doesn't have a plug-and-play connector on it. It was never designed for that.
Thank you. Last couple, does it have a barometer? I think the answer is yes.
It does. It has a new one. It's another world first. Yay! It has the BMP 388, which the guys from Bosch kindly sent me. They contacted me and said, "Would you like to try a new barrow?" I'm like, "All right, then. Send us a few, and I'll give it a whirl." And I did, and it's good. It works. It works really well. It's very stable, and it's more sensitive as well. So I would like to see more widespread use of the BMP 388 on sort of like the indoor quads and stuff. Things like that would be really nice for those. And it's also obviously great for wings and anything else that needs barrel or return to home functionality, which my friend could have used the other day actually, but he forgot to set it up, and now he's lost his H7 Extreme in the mountains in Spain. It's just... I
saw that post on Instagram.
I was like, no, you've lost. That was the first one as well. It's the first one.
It'll be dug up in 1,000 years by archaeologists, and they'll think, "What was this?" It was the first ever.
Yeah. So if you want to get yourself a piece of history, all you got to do is climb up a mountain in Tenerife in Spain and then go searching for an H7 Extreme that's up there.
Yeah, if the battery's not dead, you might be able to use RSSI. Right. So the last couple then, there was a question about, and we mentioned it. I talked about it at the top of the video, really, about how quickly the cloners dropped on the SP Racing F3 when it came out. I know before you released it, you thought it might be 5-6 months or something, and it was about 5-6 weeks. It was a ridiculous amount of time.
I think the main thing that attracts cloners is the difference between cost and selling point, and whether it's easy to make or not, and has it doesn't have any unique components on it, various different aspects. So if you've got a really simple board with like 2 components on it and you're selling it for $100 and it costs you $1 to make, they're going to clone it. That's the way it works. With an H7 Extreme, good luck to them. There's quite a lot of complicated and other sort of unique components on that board. So plus they've also got the issue of the software side of things, because they can't clone the software of the bootloader, which is the thing that runs on the CPU, which basically is what loads up the firmware and so on. So they would have to write their own one of those as well, which generally the cloners don't get into writing software. They just concentrate on the hardware side of things. So fingers crossed, nobody clones it.
Fingers crossed. Well, to be fair, as a man who's been bitten several times by cloners, I imagine that's something that's always in the back of your mind when you're designing.
Yeah, the first, let's think, the SP Racing F3 was cloned, the SP Racing F3 Mini was cloned, and the SP Racing F3 Evo was cloned, and the SP Racing F4 Evo was cloned. So, yeah.
God bless them. Right.
Thanks to everybody that bought one of those.
Yeah, if you can, then try and buy them from the people who design them.
Please do. Please do.
It just helps them stay sane and be able to afford more than beans on toast.
It's not so much. It's not just so much that as well. The problem with the cloners is that you might spend 6 months designing a new product and working out exactly how it's going to work, write all the software for it, and in that 6 months you've got to put a roof over your head still, and you've got to feed yourself, clothe yourself, and the rest of it. And maybe if you're another company, the likes of someone else who also, they have their other products cloned, no matter how big they are, they still get things cloned. But anyway, if you're a company and you've got staff to pay for like 6 months or whatever, and you've got all this research and development going on, and you make a product, you go, yay, we did it, it's brilliant. And then someone clones it and then starts undercutting your price. Basically, you can't recover as the person, that's designed all this. You can't recover your expenditure for paying for a roof over your head, your staff for like however many months or whatever, from your sales, because you're not getting the sales anymore. So the next time that you go, oh, I want to do this, I want to spend 6 months of my time doing this and releasing a new product on the world, you'll be thinking twice about it, and you might not even do it. So the main problem I see with cloners is not the fact that they just make a fast buck, and they reduce the prices of everything to anybody doing it, so it makes the market unattractive for anybody. Is that anybody doing any research and development is just basically just going to just not do it, because the cloners will basically just kill the market for it. So it's stifle innovation. It's the upshot of it. So if you support the cloners, you're supporting killing innovation.
I think that's a great summary. So while we're talking about bootloaders and some of the funky stuff that you're doing to kind of work against that kind of activity, had a question about multi-boot, which I think is a bloody great idea. Being able to boot up and then maybe have an Inav image, a Betaflight image, or a Ardupilot image, and as it comes up, being, maybe one day you want to fly it like you stole it, maybe the next day you want to fly a mission and fly, and have excellent return to home, so you want Ardupilot. Any thoughts about having that ability to select it, like a Linux or a Windows operating system when your PC starts?
It has that already. In a weird roundabout way. So the H7 basically looks on the SD card for firmware. If it finds it there, it runs it. If you haven't got an SD card plugged in, or it doesn't find it, then it will basically load up the firmware that's on the external flash chip if it's on that. Yep. So it actually has dual boot capability at the moment. So there is no technical reason why you couldn't go to a field, plug in an SD card with Ardupilot on it once they put it onto it, plug it in, and fly Ardupilot, take the SD card out, fly whatever else is on there.
Great stuff. And the last one was a very specific question. On the website, it says it has space to install the RTC 6705 module, brackets FX758-2-SPI, or the TBS Unify Pro. So it has space to install the FR Sky XM Plus full range diversity receiver. Sorry everyone, I'm reading this out. So yes. This individual hoped for a clean way to add the receiver, the FR Sky XM Plus, and the VTX in one simple clean stack without having lots of wires coming off a beautiful stack into lots of other places to support things. Is that something that you can do with the stack, is the question?
Yes. Let me get one and I'll show you.
So over to you. So could you explain how that all comes together?
Yes. So you start with a stack, and then you get I'll try and hold it up so you can see it, a VTX, and that basically goes on this side, and then you get the XM Plus little receiver with 3-pin headers on the back. It's a bit hard to see because everything these days is so super small, and it goes that side.
Wow. Okay, so the answer, look at that, the camera just zooms in at the appropriate point. There we go. So the answer is yes, it'll all be super neat.
Yes indeed.
Fabulous. Thank you, Dominic. So I appreciate now we've been going for well over half an hour, so it's probably time to wrap up and refresh our beverages again, cups.
Yeah, I'm out. I've finished.
Oh, I see. Well, I've got one little bit left. So,
let's make another one.
Dominic, thank you very much for the time this afternoon. Thank you
You're
for answering all of those questions from subscribers. Again, thank you to all of you for putting the questions there in the first place. I'll put links down below so you can have a look and get the H7 Extreme from SeriouslyPro. Again, supports the people who design these boards. It just helps maintain the pace of innovation in the hobby and make sure that they get rewarded for their efforts. And Dominic,
on that, I'd just like to say, buy my stuff so that I can carry on making cool new stuff for you.
Shameless plug. So bless you. So there we go. If you have any more questions, pop them down below. And Dominic, if you can let me know when there are any new exciting developments from SeriouslyPro, that would be great.
There will be. Watch this space.
So watch this space. So please make sure you subscribed, hit the like button, and also make sure that you have the notification bell icon selected. And that way, as future news and updates come out from SeriouslyPro, you won't miss any of them. So thank you to everybody for staying with us for the entire video. Happy flying, and go and visit the web links down below. Thanks for watching the video and watching right to the very end. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you like the video and like what I'm doing here, then hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon too. If you really like what I'm doing, you can go the extra mile and become one of my Patreons for access to me directly for support, and also giveaways and regular updates too. If you're looking for particular content, then check out the playlist. I organise all of my videos into playlists, so if you're looking for a particular topic, you can find everything here. If it's called Introduction To, it's designed to start very simply and build on that simple introduction to teach you all about it. If it's called For Beginners, then that is really aimed at people who are brand new to that part of the hobby. You can also search on YouTube for anything that you're interested in using the search function at the top. So iNav Painless 360 will find all of my videos and even the playlist around iNav. So thanks again for watching, and happy flying.